So recently I've been doing some teaching on John 15, and I always like to kind of process through what I teach on. And before, obviously, when God is speaking to me about my own life, and then after, it's always amazing to me how the Holy Spirit will kind of put things together. And I was thinking about where Jesus talks about the vine and the branches, and he talks about God being a gardener, and he'll cut away and he'll separate the wood from the vine. And I think as believers, it's easy for us to really focus in on the separation side. And sometimes when we focus in on the separation side, it's easy to overlook the pruning side. There are two types of pruning here. One is to separate, and the other is to prune. And the pruning is for the believer. And so when I'm reading the Word, I'm not always, I don't read the Word and go, okay, what is this saying to everybody out in the world? I'm reading it and saying, okay, Jimmy, what is this saying to you? What is God trying to say to you from this passage? And so as I read this, one of the things that really clearly just jumps out to me is that I think the pruning for a lot of us is about blind spots in our lives, things we can't see. And that's why we call them blind spots. But God sees them. He sees everything. And so God will see a blind spot in our area, in our lives, that we are totally unaware it exists. And then he will use a pruning process to kind of get us to a place to cut that away. I can remember in my own life, just, probably the first 15 years of my ministry, I had just a huge amount of success. And God was blessing me with fruit all around. And I think one of the blind spots, as I look back on that period, is that I think I got a little, spiritually arrogant. I knew what I was doing. And God, there was an experience, and I was reading a sermon about this passage last week from Spurgeon. He talks about the pruning, for God, the knife is the word, and affliction is the handle of the knife. And so what God will do is he will allow, when we have blind spots in our lives, he'll allow affliction to come in and drive us to the word. So whatever is causing that, whatever it may be that's keeping us from really being complete as people, it gets cut away. And that's painful. I'm telling you, when you go through an experience where God is pruning something back in your life, there's pain in that. But the beauty of it is that when we walk in the midst of that pain and God trims back that area that may be extremely fruitful in our lives, it doesn't take time before that branch, that vine begins to produce again, because we're abiding in the Word. And then the fruit begins to grow. And as the fruit grows, it's different, because now we don't have the blind spot. We're very aware of it. So I want to encourage you today, whatever you're facing, maybe you've got some affliction in your life. Maybe you're going through some pain. Stop and ask, do I have a blind spot that I don't see, that God's trying to get me to look at? And I think the world, as far as believers go, I think the world, if they would see us going through the pruning process, it would be a lot more helpful for them than if we were always talking about they're going to be separated. Maybe we need to be looking at our own selves and going, what in my life needs to be cut back? Have a great week. Don't run from the affliction. Step into the obedience. Walk in the pain, and watch the fruit of the Holy Spirit begin to grow in your life, and your joy become complete.